and I welcome you all to today's lecture on meat and fish curing part 2. In the first lecture, we have talked about the basic curing ingredients. In today's lecture, I'll be talking about the curing adjuvants, and in the coming lecture, I'll be talking about the various methods of doing curing. So I welcome you all once again to today's lecture on meat curing part 2. We'll be talking about the curing adjuvants. The curing adjuvants or the curing accelerators. Why it is called as curing accelerators? So this includes like polyphosphates, ascorbates, erythrobates, then lactate, then we have the MSG. So what is the use of this curing accelerators is that it speed up the curing process. So we can increase the speed of the curing, that is faster color developments by addition of certain curing accelerators. So this is also helped to hold more waters. It increases the sliceability, it improves the juiciness, it prevents the rancidity or off odor flavor. So the different curing adjuvants will have different functions. So we will see one by one. The first is the sodium ascorbates and sodium erythrobates. Okay, we can add sodium ascorbates or sodium erythrobates as curing accelerators. So we already seen that why it is called as curing accelerator is that because it speeds the color formations. So it can shortens the curing time, so your throughput can also be increased. So how it develops how it speeds the curing reaction is that it helps in the conversion of metmyoglobin to myoglobin. Only the myoglobin can combines with nitric oxide to form nitric oxide myoglobin, which gives a bright red in color, which upon further heating it forms the stable nitrosyl hemochromogen. That is one reaction. So without metmyoglobin cannot combine with nitric oxide. Only the myoglobin can combines with nitric oxide. So it forms a nitric oxide myoglobin. Another thing is it helps with the conversion of nitrite to nitric oxide immediately without the intermediate nitrous acid formations. So that does also help in fastening the reactions. It also helps to prevent the nitrous acid formations, so it can prevent indirectly, it can prevent the nitrosamines formations. So this is how it speed up the reactions. So you can accelerate the rate of curing by cutting down the processing time. That's what I told you. It will act as antioxidants. It also acts as a preservatives. It is effective in reducing the fading of the cured color in display. So you know that cured color will fade when you expose to the light or when you expose to the oxygen. It helps to prevent that one. It helps to reduce the nitrosamines formation. What is the maximum limit that is allowed? The maximum limit that is allowed is 550 ppm, and sodium erythrobate is more stable compared to that of sodium ascorbates. And you also see that we don't add the ascorbic acids or erythrobic acids, because when you add these things, ascorbic acids or the erythrobic acids, there will be formation of the formation of nitric oxides will be more, and it can go and it will be released as a gas into the atmosphere, and it can combine with the oxygen to form nitrogen dioxide. Okay, this nitrogen dioxide is also toxic, and sometimes it gives a chalky brown color to the meat products. That is why it is not advisable to add this acids form, that's ascorbic acid form, the erythrobic acids forms. Don't add it. It's always better to add the sodium ascorbates or the sodium erythrobates. If you want to develop the color very fast, then you can think about that, but generally I don't recommend to add the ascorbates or the erythrobates in the ascorbic acids or erythrobic acids in the curing process. Coming to the next curing adjuvants, that is the phosphates. Normally we add sodium tripolyphosphate, is also called as STPP. So STPP will be converted into dipolyphosphates, which will be more active, and it will be further converted into monophosphates. So what is the use of these phosphates? Normally we add the alkaline phosphates. The alkaline phosphates, when you add, it increases the water holding capacity. So once it increases the water holding capacity, it reduces the cooking loss, it improves the sliceability, and it also helps to maintain the flavor or retention of the flavor of the meat, because it chelates with certain pro-oxidants like metals, okay, copper, such metals. It can chelate with such metals, and the pro-oxidants, the actions of the pro-oxidants can be prevented. So it helps to help in the retention of the flavor, and it also helps in the protein extractions like the myofibrillar proteins, which help in the emulsification. We have already seen when we talked about the sodium chloride. Okay, it reduces the viscosity of the batter, so it creates a proper viscosity and make the stuffing more easier when you make the sausage products. Okay, when you make the sausage, it helps in easy stuffing of the batter into the casings. So for that also these phosphates will be very helpful. What is the permitted level? We can add 0.5%. Normally in the muscle there will be 0.1% that will be present in the meat or the fish. Normally we can come across this. Most of the food will be containing these phosphates around 0.1%. So we can add around 0.3% or 0.4%. Normally I used to add around 0.3% polyphosphates. So the residual polyphosphates, it will not extend that limit of addition. Okay, why we should not add more is that if you add more than 0.5%, what happens? It gives a rubbery texture to the product, and it also affects your, if you take too much of phosphates, that will also affect your health. It can give joint illness and other things. So if you take the chemical formula, it will contain 5 sodium, 3 phosphates, and 10 oxygens. So this is the chemical formula, and the E number is 451. So in the labeling, if you find E451, it is sodium tripolyphosphates. So how sodium tripolyphosphates or the polyphosphate increase the water holding capacity? So once you add the sodium tripolyphosphates, it is one which increase the pH. So once the pH increase, it unbound the protein molecules. The protein will be in the coiled structures. So when you add the sodium tripolyphosphates, what happens? It increases the pH and it unbound the protein molecules. It increases the ionic strength. It also chelates with certain divalent metal ions, especially the calcium and magnesium. It can chelates with that divalent metals. That is, it forms proper coordinated bonds with these ligands like calcium and magnesium, and it dissociates the actinomyosin complexes. So once the actinomyosin is dissociated, it will have more site for the water molecules to be bound. I'll repeat, once the actinomyosin is dissociated, there will be more site for the water to come and bind with these proteins like actin and myosin. It will be more exposed, the sites will be more exposed, and water can come and bind with them. So it is actually unbounding the protein molecules, so the site will be increased, so more water molecules can come and bind with that. Another thing is that these polyphosphates are anions, which will increase the negative charge, which in turn lead the protein-protein repulsion. So when the negative charge increases, the protein-protein repulsion will be taking place. So they'll not attract with each other, so they'll be attracting more to the water molecules. So this is another thing, how it acts to improve the water holding capacity. So water holding capacity is brought about by the polyphosphates. So normally in the meat industries, we had the sodium tripolyphosphates. The sodium tripolyphosphates are also used in the fish industry. They'll be dipping the fish in the sodium tripolyphosphates. Normally we use 5% solutions. If you're adding as in the solid forms, we can add 0.3%. If you are preparing a solution and then we are injecting means, or if you are dipping means, we can go up, we can make a 5% solution. So in this 5% solution, they will dip the fish, so this will make the fish more attractive, or more freshness will be there. It also helps to increase the water holding capacity. Even in the poultry, sometimes they are using the sodium, they used to inject the sodium tripolyphosphates to increase the water holding capacity, so the drip can be reduced, and it helps to maintain the juiciness of that meat or the product. So next component that is used as a curing and the curing as accelerators or curing adjuvants is that flavor enhancers. So we had different types of compound like MSG, guanidine 5 monophosphate, inositol 5 monophosphate, and certain seasonings and condiments, spices and condiments. Okay, so normally the flavoring enhancer like a chemical flavoring enhancers is not required because meat itself or the fish itself is have a very good flavor. So you normally they had this MSG, monosodium glutamate, which gives a typical umami taste, okay, which are more attracted to the childrens. But it is not normally recommended because it is till the debates is going on whether it's highly carcinogenic or not. In most of the countries they also banned this MSG. So MSG is a man-made chemical. Actually, it is when you react the sodium with the glutamate, which is produced from the seaweeds. When you react that one, we get what is called as MSG. Okay, monosodium glutamate, which is commonly called as Ajinomoto. Okay, it gives a typical umami taste. So it is normally used in the China in the food materials. They'll be using this MSG. This will improve the flavor. MSG as its MSG does not have a specific flavor of its own, but when you add to the meat or the food materials, it enhances the flavor. So it is only called as a flavor potentiator, or it will also called as salivation enhancer. It will give a typical flavor which will be attracting the consumer, or it making more tastier. But normally it is recommended not to add it because meat or meat products is already having a good flavor itself. Then what is the necessity of adding this MSG, which is considered to be a carcinogenic? It will also create some allergic reactions in the people. So it gives when you consume this more, it gives a syndrome called as Chinese restaurant syndrome. Okay, so this is the problem with MSG. So normally don't recommend this MSGs in the meat and meat products. They normally uses in the meal, in the soups, or in the Chinese restaurant. They'll be commonly using for soup, noodles, and such products. So it is also not recommended for the children's below the age of 14. We should not use this MSG because it will be affecting their health. So it is also called as Chinese restaurant syndrome. It also called as salivation enhancer or flavor potentiators. The maximum permitted limit is 0.1%. Coming to the next curing adjuvant, that is a seasoning, that is a spices. The spices normally we had in the form of powder, or we'll be adding in the form of spice oil, or we'll be adding in the form of spice oleoresins. Okay, spices that is normally in the powder form will be that is what we do in our culinary or in the kitchens. We'll be using such types of powders. What is the advantages of the properties of or functional properties of spices? That it gives a beautiful flavor. Most of the spices will have antioxidant properties, antimicrobial properties, then antiviral properties. So this is the advantages of adding spices. So spices can be added in three forms. One is in the powder forms, next in the form of oil, or in the form of spice oil, or the third in the form of oleoresins, spice oleoresins. Okay, so let's see one by one. The powder forms are also sometimes they are also added in the form of encapsulated way. Why we do encapsulation is that it helps to maintain the inherent aroma, nutrition, and other properties of that spices. So it will help to prevent the flavor from evaporations and other flavors from evaporations and other reaction during the processing and storage. That is why we do encapsulation. How the encapsulation is done? So we will be creating a matrix using some invisible microfilms of normally they use the hardened vegetable oils. They'll be using that matrix to which these oils components are adhered. So that will help to maintain the inherent aroma, nutrients, and other properties, so it will not get lost easily. That is why they go with the encapsulation. Even in many companies in Kerala, like Synthite, Plant Lipids, are producing such types of encapsulated spices. And next is the oleoresins and the oils. So what is this oleoresins and oils? See, this is a spice oleoresins. See, it is by the solvent extractions. So this oils, this oleoresins will be containing the essential oil plus the resins. Okay, so it is more concentrated forms. It will be more concentrated liquid, we can say, that can be obtained from the spices, and it will have the full characters of the respective spice. So it will be more concentrated form. So the quantity that we have to add should be very, very, very less. Okay, we cannot add the same quantities as we add the powder. Suppose we are adding 100 grams, with the same 100 grams of oleoresins you should not add, because it is more concentrated form. Even adding little quantity will give the same effect of adding that 100 grams. So normally we have found that suppose we are adding 100 grams, meaning in that places oleoresins you can add only 2 grams or 2.5 grams. So less quantity you have to add. The oleoresins will contain the volatile and non-volatile compounds, and it is produced by the solvent extraction methods. So here high potency of active components are present. That is, it contains the volatiles and the non-volatiles. That is, the resins, essential oil plus the resins will be present in the oleoresins, and it is always used in small doses. That is what we talked. And it can be in the form of liquid, solid or semi-solid forms. So these are oleoresins. Okay. Coming to the spice oils, it is extracted generally by the steam distillation. So we'll be it is a steam distillations. It will not contain it will contain only the oil. The resins will not be there. They'll be using what is called as a steam distillation method. Pressurized steam they'll be using for this extractions. So it will contain only the it is present only in the liquid forms. It will not present in the solid or semi-solid forms. So distilled off from the spices at the initial stage before subjecting to the solvent extraction. So when you are in the case of oleoresins, we will be doing solvent extractions, but before that what we do, we they do what you call as a steam distillations. So by the steam distillations in process only we'll get this one. So it mainly contains the volatile aromatic compounds. It will not contain the non-volatile. It is a volatile aromatic compound, so it gives a better aroma, and the quantity that we add is more than that of the oleoresins, but less than the spices, we can say. So normally we found that this is an approximate I'm telling, so it is wrongly mentioned here. It should be 100 is 2, 6 is to 2.5. Okay, so we normally add some, say, from the ratio of, suppose we are adding 100 grams of spice powder, means in that places we'll be adding around 4 grams or 5 grams or 6 grams of this this spices oil. So less quantity is required. At the same time, if you're adding oleoresins, means then we will be adding around 2 grams, 1.5 grams or 2 grams in the place of 100 grams of powder. Is it clear? So in that ratios only we have to add it. Otherwise it will affect the flavor of the food materials or the meat products. So we did lot of work with oleoresins and spice oils. We have done in association with plant lipids. We have done lot of work with the oleoresins. We used this as antioxidants and antibacterial to extend the shelf life of these products. These are very the advantages is that it is easy to store. You can keep it for a very long time, and the quantity that is required also very less. So space requirement is also very less. It will be more the flavor will be more what you call this, it will be more intense, so the quantity that we have to add will be very less. That is the advantages of adding the oleoresins or the oils, and it will always, we get for all the batches we can maintain the same flavor developments and other things. So that is the advantages of adding this oils or the oleoresins. So most of the industries are now shifting instead of powders, because handling of the powder is difficult. It will get solidifies when you expose to the moistures and other things, pest problems, all these things. So to prevent that only, now they are going with this oleoresins or the oils. Coming to the potassium sorbate, it's the next curing adjuvants, we can say. Why we add potassium sorbates? Normally we add potassium sorbates in the meat products which have low water activity. So in the low water activity product, the main culprit is the mold or the yeast spoilage. It's not the bacterial spoilage. So it helps to prevent the or inhibit the yeast and mold growth. For that only we will be adding the potassium sorbates. You can see this will be in the form of granules, you can see. Okay, the maximum dose that we can add as a powder form. So if you're adding in the powder form to the pickle, so this is normally added to the pickle, bread products, and for dipping of sausages. All for this we'll be using the potassium sorbate. So maximum dose is 0.26% as a powder form. If you are making a solution, suppose you are dissolving in the water and you want to make a solution, and then you add to the pickle, means you can add 2.5, you can make 2.5% solution. Okay, and this solution is normally used in the meat industry for dipping the sausages. Especially we'll dip the sausages in this potassium sorbate, so on the surface the mold will not grow. Otherwise what happens is the mold will start growing on the surface. To prevent that only, they'll be using for dipping the sausages in this potassium sorbate solution. For if you are making a solution, its strength should be 2.5%. It should not go beyond that. It is easily soluble in water, and if they are using potassium sorbates in the meat products, especially we add in the pickle, because you know that pickle, the water activity will be very less, so there's a chance for fungus or mold to grow. So the E number that is designated is 202. Okay, and it is used as a preservative. It is easily metabolized in our body and it's relatively non-toxic. So the potassium sorbate is normally used to inhibit the yeast and mold growth, and is normally used in the food materials which have low water activity. So thank you very much for listening, and in the next lecture we will be covering about the methods of curing, or different methods of curing I'll be talking. If you have any doubt, you can contact me in this mobile numbers, and or you can send me mail. I also put lot in the YouTube, Dr. Sadhu Meat Tech. You can also refer if you are more interested. You can also refer that one. Thank you very much. Take care. God bless you all.